we haven't even started the season. We're 4 days away. And is ESPN already working the magic to make sure that what happens to them last year, the fact that they only got the second most teams in the playoff instead of the first, it snubbed, 9-3 team snubbed, which is hilarious to think about as an FSU fan, that doesn't happen again to one of their precious members, Danny Kanell, who, love or hate him, which is an FSU guy, and the way that he trolls the SEC, I am fully in the Danny Kanell camp. It was pointed out to him by one of these aggregating accounts on Twitter that ESPN's FPI has magically moved a whole bunch of SEC teams from like 20s and mid-teens, lower teens, up into like the 11, 12 range. They've dropped Clemson drastically, which I'm very high on Clemson this year. I think Cade Klubnik is QB1. I think they're going to go to the playoff. I think they're going to at least win a playoff game there. They've dropped Big 12 teams. They're starting this already with FPI, which I've never thought FPI was the end-all be-all, but it is a metric that the committee puts on the screen when they put these polls together at the end of the year. They're trying their very best to stack the deck early, and the top 10 is loaded with SEC teams, some Big 10 teams too, for sure, your powers that you would recognize. And then all the ACC Big 12 teams are getting dropped, and no football has been played. Nothing has happened since the spring. Shout out to Kanell. Shout out to the aggregating site, which I don't even know what it was, that found this. But yeah, it's starting early, right? We haven't even kicked off in Dublin, and it's already started.
This applies across the board. It even applies to some of the Big 12 schools who are ticked off that now BYU has moved up in the FPI. And according to ESPN, BYU is in the Big 12 championship game against Kansas State. And I'm a little ticked off by that. I was supposed to be the genius who had BYU in the Big 12 championship, not anybody else. And I'm not following ESPN here. That's who I put in my Big 12 title. When they did their final FPI mix-up before the college football season, there are schools like USC that are ahead of Clemson and Miami and Kansas State and SMU even, who I'll throw a bone to here. Schools like Auburn ahead of BYU. Missouri is ahead of Arizona State. And what that makes me want to do is ask the committee, hey, if you're going to value FPI, I need every individual member of this committee to explain to me what FPI is. Because the only thing that I can get out of it is, it's the algorithm that makes the teams that do more good or be good. And that's it. It's this fake thing where ESPN can wield its four letters and say, yeah, it's Texas, Georgia, Alabama, Ohio State, Penn State. You're like, where did Alabama come from in there? Why are they third in the Where did Georgia come from? Ohio State just won the national championship. Penn State arguably has the best roster in college football. And then, the fact they have Tennessee in the top 10, Texas A&M and Ole Miss in the top 10, South Carolina up there, Florida. Do we forget how bad Florida got waxed by Miami? Do we no longer play full college football seasons? Is that not allowed in this sport? Do we forget how bad LSU looked at times last year? Ole Miss losing to Kentucky. Now things happen. BYU lost to a team that's not very good in Kansas, and Arizona State lost to Cincinnati last year. There are schools that are going to slip up to various opponents. And I understand that, but man, the fact that we're valuing a team like Ole Miss or Texas A&M or Tennessee in the top 10 right now, what it does is ultimately it gives the Big 12, the ACC, and even the Big 10 in this a worse shake at the end of the season, because now if you're ranked in the top 10 preseason, you can only go up from there. If you're ranked 48th, like maybe a Big 12 school like a Baylor, and you end up winning the Big 12 championship, like, oh, look at this team that came out of nowhere, and the metrics hate them, and they weren't even good preseason. No, right now it's all an even playing field, a big even slate. And if it's not an even slate, then the 48th best team, despite not playing a game, has an impossible task to beat the 5th best team, despite them not playing a game. And we could have from jump started with number 48 being better than number 5, but we'll never know because we won't move number 5 past number 48 and vice versa. 48 can't jump 5. Why? Because we put all of our eggs in a basket that doesn't exist, in a basket that is just preseason mumblings and, well, this guy goes to that school and that guy goes to that school and maybe they're going to be good. It's a bunch of maybes that add up to nothing. TJ, I don't see a use for the FPI outside of throwing it away.
What's interesting to me is that that Fox hasn't come up with a counter right? Like, why am I the one thinking of this? But like, why has CBS or Fox or somebody else not come up with a counter to FPI that is maybe dude, you could make a public one, right? Because the FPI formula is not publicly known. Like QBR, like passer rating, that is known. Like you or not a QBR, but a QB rating. You can calculate it out to get to that 158.3 that is a perfect QB rating in the NFL. FPI is this privatized metric that can be moved and manipulated all behind the scenes. Proprietary, maybe I understand that idea. But yeah, you look at some of these moves. Tennessee jumping up with an unproven quarterback from Appalachian State. Florida, everybody on Florida's team is in a boot right now, including their starting quarterback. And I'm not just being a hater by saying that. I'm higher on the Gators than I've been in a long time for this season. But the only thing that's happened between the spring and now is that their top two receivers are in boots and their quarterback's hurt. And they're moving up in FPI. Like, what are we doing with this?
Can I make this crazy? I love it. Yeah, I think BYU is my Big 12 title. I love them this season for their defensive prowess. And the second they named a true freshman their starting quarterback, ESPN said, shoot, dog, put him in the Big 12 championship, I guess. Like, no, ESPN, that's my job, not you. Please don't do that. It's crazy to me that so many of these teams that have had pretty bad injuries or pretty bad, ebbs and flows in the last couple months, ESPN said, I don't know, put them in the top 20. Why not? And even BYU is a part of that. Does this not feel like they're once again, ESPN, who has the major contract of the college football playoff games, that they're once again just kind of feeding themselves? This is not to name any politicians, but there are some politicians who you follow their stock trends because they got the friends in low places. That's what this feels like to me.
Yeah, moving the chess pieces around before you start the game, to put the other person's king out front is a wild move to make. And then you take your king off the board so you never be checkmated. That's what it feels like. That's probably a terrible analogy. Might clip it up, might not. But that's what it feels like ESPN is doing here. Is let me rearrange the board before we really get started. Moving Florida up and dropping Clemson well below them makes no sense at all to me. But hey, Clemson is not in the right conference yet. So it is what it is.
Today's show is brought to you by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is exactly where I'm going this fall in the NFL season, namely to make sure that I can win some dough. That's what I like to do. This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks, the daily fantasy platform that lets you turn your football predictions into real rewards. Preseason heating up in college football isn't far behind either. Whether your eye is the big name quarterback or breakout running back, Prize Picks gets it in the game. Prize Picks is simple to play. Pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections. If you get your picks right, you can cash in and win up to 2,000 times your money. I've used it for a few seasons now, and I love that it's just simple. The flex play option is a total game changer. Even one of your picks misses, you can still double your money. Download the Prize Picks app today. Use code LOCKEDONCollege to get $50 off in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONCollege to get $50 off in lineups after you play your first $5 play. Prize Picks. Run your game with Prize Picks today. This show is also brought to you by FanDuel. FanDuel is exactly where I go on August 26th. Officially FanDuel Futures Day, a brand new holiday for football fans who live for bold predictions. For just 24 hours, FanDuel is giving you deals on NFL season predictions. So whether you're calling your MVP, eyeing a long shot division winner, or ready to crown your Super Bowl, this is your time. Take a flyer on the MVP race. Crown your champion in August, the Dallas Cowboys, right? Or parlay your division winner dark horses. Visit the FanDuel app today and start planning your futures bets now, because FanDuel Futures Day is one day and one day only, August 26th. FanDuel, play your game with FanDuel today.